guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time seeing my videos, hello, my name is Carly. 9 months ago I had my daughter Kennedy and I asked you guys over on Instagram if you'd still be interested in seeing my labor and delivery story, and you guys said yes, so that's the video I'm filming today. Don't forget to follow me over on Instagram in case you want to help me decide what videos I film in the future. It's taken me the last 9 months to really feel ready to share this experience with you guys. A lot of it just feels like a blur to me. It doesn't even really feel like it's my story. Like I had to actively sit and try to remember the details to tell you guys, because I kind of feel like I have PTSD from the experience. Afterwards, I was just so sad from it that the last thing I wanted to do was sit and talk about it when it was fresh in my mind. So now that it's been a long enough time, I actually feel ready to share it with you guys. To really get the full understanding of what happened, I have to start like months back when I was pregnant. I was already having anxiety about the labor and delivery process because I have scoliosis. I was a little bit worried about my chances of getting an epidural. So I wanted to know in advance because that way I could have that pain management in place, whether that be hiring a doula or doing different things like trying to labor, in a shower, on a birthing ball. So I was advised that if I was really concerned about my chances of getting an epidural, that I should speak to the team at the hospital who would be administering the epidural. I had photos of my spine x-rays to show them so that there'd be full transparency before I got to the hospital. The team at the hospital assured me that they had done epidurals on people who had way worse scoliosis than I did. They do this all the time. I have horrible anxiety, in case you couldn't tell. I always assume that the worst is going to happen, and usually that's because I've been in a lot of crazy situations where like the worst case scenario does happen, so I've just started to prep for it so I won't be in those situations, or at least be caught off guard from them. So that's why I was trying to take every possible step to not be put in a situation like the one I was in. I basically decided like this time around to not listen to the crazy voice in my head. Calm down, knowing that the staff is experienced. Women go through this every day. People with scoliosis have children. Like, this is something that you should not be freaking out about. If they're telling you it's fine, it's fine. Don't listen to that crazy voice in your head. Spoiler alert, should have listened to that voice inside my head. So when I was 36 weeks pregnant, I was diagnosed with high blood pressure, so I had gestational hypertension. I don't have high blood pressure outside of pregnancy. It was just something that started to happen when I was 36 weeks pregnant. My doctor's office had me coming in every other day to be monitored. My 37-week appointment, I went in, they took my blood pressure, it was high, we waited 20 more minutes, took it again, it was high, we waited again, took it again, still high. So they told me later that night at 10 p.m. I had an appointment to start the induction. I was getting induced that night. You know how some people at like 36 weeks pregnant, 37 weeks pregnant, they're like, I am done being pregnant, get this baby out of me, like I am ready to go, let's get this show on the road. I was the complete opposite. Like, I did not feel ready, and I didn't feel like my baby was ready. I was not effaced at all, I was not dilated at all. Like, my body was shut up, did not want to get this baby out. So at 10 o'clock at night, I went into the hospital to start the induction process. I also feel like I should preface this story by saying that a lot of what I'm about to share is not with my doctor, because my doctor was incredible. She was there, I think, with me for 24 hours. Like, she didn't sleep. She was there the whole time. She was like my lifesaver. So I just wanted to make that very clear. Checked in, I got to my hospital room. Right from the beginning, I knew that things were kind of like going south, but I was trying to be positive Patty about everything. They couldn't get the IV in. They tried at first on my left arm. They did, like one failed IV attempt, a second failed IV attempt. And after the second one, the nurse looked at me and was like, okay, legally, I can't try anymore. The person came in, and then on my right arm, they tried. They couldn't make it happen. Finally got it on, I think, the 4th attempt. Nothing's really started yet.
No.
My arm hurts a little bit.
Yeah,
okay.
It stuck you like 4 times.
I know, I got stabbed a lot. I literally had like bruises all over my arms when I left the hospital from all the IV attempts. So the way that they decided to induce me was basically insert a balloon inside of you, and then they fill the balloon to try to dilate you. They were telling me like, this is one of the most uncomfortable parts about the induction, is getting the crib in you and getting it inflated. You can't get an epidural yet, like you're not at this point, but you can get a little bit of pain medicine to like kind of take the edge off if you'd like that. I was like, okay, if that is truly like one of the most painful parts and you're telling me to get a little bit of pain medicine, sure. So they gave me that medicine, and then they start to put the crib inside of me. The woman who was doing it was like trying to put it in, And I remember laying there being like, you know, like really uncomfortable, but I was just like going with it. She also was like, man, I'm having some real difficulty getting this in. I might have to go get someone else to help me do it. And I'm like, the pain meds that they gave me to kind of like take the edge off and handle the induction process made me really, really, really nauseous. I remember being like, whoa, I'm so nauseous, is this normal? And then I started to vomit. Me just trying to sip on water would come back up. If I had an ice chip, it would make me throw up. Like, I was throwing up so much. I honestly felt like I had this stomach flu. It was horrible. They told me like I could not have anything because it's going to make me throw up more. You know, when you're pregnant, like I was used to drinking so much water a day, so to go drinking that much and then all of a sudden for hours just have no fluid or liquids, everything about me felt so dry, and all I wanted was to have an ice chip in my mouth, but then that would make me throw up more. Around 3 or 4, I remember I got up to use the restroom and the crib actually fell out of me, and the nurses told me in advance, like when the crib falls out of you, if it does, that means like it's done its job and you're done with that process. They thought it was going to take till like 6 or 7 in the morning, so I thought because it had fallen out 3 hours earlier that things were going great. I was like, oh, the worst is past us. I really felt like excited. I was like, we're gonna have this baby in like 12 hours. When it fell out, they checked me and I was dilated to like 3 or 4 at this point. So I was really, really excited. Then I was going to get my water broken. So my biggest regret in this whole experience is listening to other people, like their experiences. I wish I would have just gone with my intuition, gone with my anxiety, and like gone with myself. I heard in the past that like getting your water broken was like one of the most painful parts, and that if you're going to get an epidural, you should get it right before they break your water. And I was really concerned again with my scoliosis. That was something they told me during my consultation, is maybe get it before you're like screaming in pain, because if we have to spend extra time plotting it out on your back and you can't move during it, you might need to do it when you're not like screaming in contraction pain. And the hospital staff was telling me you should get it now because the staff's going to change over, and if you don't get it now, it might be hours until you can get your epidural. At that point, I didn't think I needed medicine, but because everyone was telling me with my spine that I should get it then, I was like, okay, I'm gonna listen to all this advice. I'm going to get the epidural. It's like sitting on the bed, everyone else had left, they were about to like do it. They were looking at my spine, and the guy was like, oh, this might be a problem. And I remember being like, what do you mean this might be a problem? Like, I literally had phone calls, emails, like, we have talked about this. We've talked about this. And the guy was like, ooh, yeah, this might be an issue. Help me. That is my biggest pet peeve of all of my life, is me trying to do everything possible to avoid a certain outcome, and that outcome still happening. Why couldn't you just tell me from the beginning it would be a problem so I could have prepped, you know? Like, I tried to plan for this. They do the epidural, and I remember hearing things about the epidural, like, oh, getting it so painful, all that kind of stuff was not a problem. I was really trying to not be fearful of all of that kind of stuff. We got the epidural in, and I was like, see, everything's okay. Spoiler alert, everything wasn't okay. The epidural numbed the wrong part of me. It numbed me from the legs down. It didn't numb any of the actual pain in places that was supposed to numb. As they kept upping the Pitocin and my contractions would get stronger, I could feel all of them, but I could not move or walk. All I wanted to do was be able to like go for a walk, get in the shower, be on all fours, like be in any other position to try to manage the contraction pain and like do something and get my mind off of it. And I couldn't do anything. I was just laying there. I was literal dead weight. I felt like I was paralyzed. My legs were so heavy that if a nurse moved them, my leg would drop, like it dropped off the bed. Like, that's how numb I was. It actually stalled my labor. It felt like a lifetime was going by, because every time my doctor would come to check me, I was still stuck at 4, and I was just like laying there unable to move. So they kept trying to rotate my position to try to see if my labor would progress in a different position. Cody and a couple of other nurses would be like grabbing my legs at different parts and like trying to turn my whole body, because I could not do anything. Right as they got me into position, my baby went into distress, so her heart rate dropped. So then everyone came running in the room to try to flip me back over. They put oxygen on me, so I was wearing an oxygen mask. It was terrifying. I remember looking down and I was so swollen. Like, my feet were huge. Looking down and seeing that and not being able to move it, like, I honestly felt like I was paralyzed, and I was so worried that I was like trapped. So after you get your water broken, you basically are on the clock. You have like a 24-hour period where you can deliver the baby, and after that is when they start to get worried about infection setting in. So that's typically when, like, if all else is going well in your labor, you have that amount of time before they will go into doing a C-section. So my labor had stalled. I was dilated at 4 or 5 for what felt like forever, and I was getting really, really concerned that we were getting closer and closer to me needing a C-section. A lot of the times the pain medicine they administer for a C-section is called the spinal, and they do that through your spine as well. I can literally feel everything in my stomach, in my abs. I was freaking out thinking that they were going to cut me open and I was going to feel it. That is the stuff of like TLC shows. I said to Cody, I didn't want to end up on a TLC show again. Once is good enough, okay? I remember my doctor coming in and me like sobbing to her. She was like, I will do literally everything I can to make sure we don't get there. Obviously, if I had to or if the baby was in distress, we would have to get there. But she was really reassuring to me that she wasn't going to just like jump into doing a C-section unless it was seriously our last option. Like I should obviously say, not against C-sections. It's just I was super concerned that I was going to be feeling getting one. I had another guy come in and he said he was going to redo my epidural, try to figure it out. His theory behind why it didn't work is that they didn't go high enough. He showed like my body like this, and he's like, the epidural got like up to here, and it needs to like get up to here on you because of your height, with like your stomach being higher. So we need to put more medicine in you. So after he had done that for a little bit, I started to feel some relief in my stomach and I could relax. I felt like, okay, it's starting to work. My legs were still completely numb. I couldn't move at all, but the contractions at least were starting to become a little bit tempered. If I have to get a C-section, I won't feel anything. That's good. The nurses got me onto a position in my side. I had a big exercise ball in between my legs. I was laying like that for a couple of hours. During that time, that actually helped my labor to progress. I remember a new nurse had come in at this point who hadn't been with me, who didn't see everything that was going on. I started to feel all of like the crazy Pitocin contractions. It was super painful. And I remember being like, okay, this isn't working anymore. We need to get him back in here. And if you've had an epidural or you know anything about them, on the side of your bed, like you can push the button to give you more of the pain medicine. Except for me, it was only numbing my legs. So like if I push it, it would just numb my legs more, but I would still feel the contractions. So I was trying to ask my nurse to go find the doctor who had gotten the pain medicine to work for me. I was like, hey, can you go get him and bring him back in here? I'm starting to have problems again. And she looked at me and she was like, oh, you just need to hit the pain button. And I was like, no, like my legs are just going numb. That's not what's going on. Like he did something special to help me get rid of the pain. I've been here for a very long time. Can you just go find him? And she was like, no, I think you need to push a pain button. And I was like, no, I don't think you're understanding the situation. I think you need to go find him. And she was like, I think you should push a pain button. The look on my face was probably like, you're gonna need to push the pain button if you don't go get him. I did have a lot of like really good nurses in between that. I'm just like telling you the part of the story that was crazy. So finally around Friday night, like 9, 10 o'clock, that's when I think things actually started to progress a little bit. She checked me and I was at like a 7, and that felt like life-changing because I had been stuck at 4 or 5 forever. And then when she checked me around 1 in the morning, she said we were getting ready to push. The fact that I was actually going to be able to attempt pushing, I was like, oh my goodness, we might be able to make this. I'd been in labor at that point for like 29 to 30 hours, and I'd been up for 2 full days because I had been up Thursday, induction started, didn't sleep that night, up all of Friday. Now we were going into Friday at 1, 2 in the morning. I had been throwing up, I hadn't eaten, I hadn't even had water. They gave me the green light to have like a little bit of apple juice, would give me a little bit of sugar to like get through the pushing process, but they would only let me have like a sip in between pushes because they were still worried that I was going to throw up. So I would push, they would give me a sip of apple juice, and then I would push again. And so now I call apple juice Kenny juice. I just remember pushing and, you know, sipping apple juice and being so exhausted. And like after every push, I would just like lay there and just want to go to sleep. And they were like, you got this, it's so close. My doctor kept being like, you're so close, you're so close. And I was like, I'm not so close, I know it. But she kept reassuring me. I would like take a sip of juice, push again. Finally, at 5:34 when she was born, I remember just like collapsing. I'm so, you know, like exhausted and so thankful that it's done and it's over and she's here and she's healthy. He goes to cut the cord and the blood from the cord sprayed back in my face. I was covered in cord blood. I was like, it was like the perfect end to my labor experience. God was totally watching over my labor in retrospect because I didn't end up having to have the surgery I was so worried about, and Kennedy was fine through the whole labor. And then once I delivered her, the doctors told us that the cord was actually wrapped around her neck too. So the fact that the cord was wrapped around her and we had no other problems and she's totally healthy and totally fine, like, I got chills thinking about that. When we had gotten into our recovery room and I could just sit with Cody and with Kennedy and like kind of have a moment of peace. I remember holding her and I looked over at Cody and I said, I want 1,000,000 babies. If you're watching this video because you're pregnant and you're worried about labor, just know that like I had one of the worst labors possible and I still right afterwards was like, I want 1,000,000 babies, so you'll be fine. I only had 1st-degree tearing, so my injuries postpartum were actually pretty minimal, and I remember thinking that like labor was just so terrible that the recovery process to me wasn't a big deal. I was just so thankful that I could feel anything and that I could walk on my legs. The one problem I had in my recovery was related to my epidural, and because they did it so many times, my back was like this. Like my back stuck out so far there, and I was like, I literally have a shelf on my back. Is this normal? By this time, the guy who had first done my epidural, who it didn't work, he was back on shift again because that's how long I had been there. So he came back and then he looked at my shelf and he was like, oh, you just have that because you've been sitting so long. And I was like, I don't believe a word you say. So I actually had pain in my epidural spot for a while, like after coming home from the hospital. The shelf eventually went down, but I definitely had pain for quite some time. One last piece about my labor and delivery experience. We're getting ready to go home and I'm trying to get dressed to leave. I'm looking for my shoes and my shoes were missing. I went into the hospital wearing brand new black UGG like gym shoe boots. They were not in my room, and we were asking the staff like, hey, are those still in the delivery room? Are they in the lost and found? Like, where are my shoes? They're like brand new clean UGG boots. Like, they're pretty big. Like, how did those just go missing? And they were just like, sorry. You know, I'm not gonna say that they were stolen because I don't know that for 100% certainty, but all I know is I went to the hospital wearing UGG boots and I left not wearing UGG boots and no one could find them. I literally packed like slippers to wear around the hospital for my recovery time. I went home wearing my slippers. It was a true low point. I feel like there's parts of my stories obviously that was like crazy, but also like we did have a ton of people in the hospital that worked with us who were incredible. Like we had so many sweet nurses who were helping me like flip over and get into different positions. I'm really, really grateful for like so many people that worked with us. They were so kind and so caring. Obviously, like I said, my doctor was incredible. She was amazing. She had a family of her own and she still stayed for 24 hours to make sure I was comfortable and to deliver our daughter, so I'm so thankful to her. If you are someone who is pregnant and that's why you're watching this video, please don't let my experience scare you. I look back on that experience and I'm like sad about a lot of it, but at the same time I clearly survived. I'm fine, and like within an hour of being in my recovery room, I was telling my husband that I wanted more babies and I was so in love with our daughter. So like no matter what the experience is and no matter how like crazy things get, at the end of it, you have this like beautiful baby, and I'm so grateful for her every day. I had 2 days of terrible pain, but I've had like so many days of love afterwards with my child. If you are watching this and you're trying to prep yourself, just know that like no matter what happens, the most important thing is that you and your baby are healthy. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more. Bye guys!